Joining me now is Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland, Democrat of Washington State and whip of the Congressional Black Caucus. Congresswoman, I'm glad to have you, but I have a lot to cover with you. But I must start with your take on some comments from Oklahoma's Superintendent of Public Instruction, who, since taking office 6 months ago, has attacked critical race theory and recently promoted Christianity and Western heritage in public schools. This week, at a town hall, he said teachers should cover the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921 without suggesting it was racially motivated, which to him would invoke critical race theory. Take a listen.
How does the Tulsa Race Massacre not fall under your definition of CRT?
I would never tell a kid that because of your array, because of your color of your skin, or your gender, or anything like that, you are less of a person or are inherently racist. That doesn't mean you don't judge the actions of individuals. Oh, you can absolutely. Historically, you should. This was right. This was wrong. They did this for this reason. But to say it was inherent in the because of their skin is where I say that is critical race theory.
Now, I'm sure I don't have to remind you an estimated 300 people were killed and a thriving black community was destroyed at the hands of a white mob that rampaged for 2 days. Walters has since walked back his comments, insisting the mob, quote, didn't act that way because they were white. They acted that way because they were racist, end quote. I mean, what's your take on this story?
Well, thanks for having me on, Reverend Al. The remarks made by the superintendent are just ridiculous and contradictory. There's a reason this is called the Tulsa Race Massacre. And as you mentioned earlier, it happened in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, which was known as Black Wall Street. 300 people were murdered. They were African American. And to deny that race was part of the calculation of doing this is just part of the manufactured crisis that has been going on with critical race theory. You see it happening in school board meetings. You see it happening in school board races. And now a state superintendent of public instruction is adopting it. You can't deny our history. And teaching it and having all students learn about it helps us make sure we don't repeat it. And people need to learn about their history. This is the history of America.
I had to start with that. I have more to say about that later in the show. But now let's you and I go to the economy. The U.S. added 209,000 jobs in June. The president touting the success of so-called Bidenomics yesterday, pointing out more than 13 million jobs have been created during this administration. 13 million. Of course, the positive data points they may not be felt equally by everyone. Now, what's your take on the health of the economy as we approach an election year?
Well, there's some really good news. This is another example of consistent job growth. We know that wages are up, unemployment is down to around 3.5%, and there are vacancies everywhere. We want to make sure that all people, however, Rev, get access to those jobs. When we passed the American Rescue Plan, it was in response to the pandemic to try to help cities, help employers keep their doors open. And then with the infrastructure bill, putting people to work, that was a jobs bill, good union jobs, and also, Rev, making sure that minority-owned businesses get access to contracting. And then the Inflation Reduction Act, more job creation. And so we can't be surprised that this is happening. There's also some really good news in there, too. There is a group of people within a certain demographic age group between 25 and 54. They now have over 83% job participation rate. And so this is all very, very good news, not denying that there's some inflationary pressures that people are feeling with supply chain, but inflation is now being reduced. And again, the economy remains strong, and this is important, it remains resilient.
No, and you are correct about that. And you say there's some inequality because even though the general unemployment number is down historically to 3.2%, black unemployment went up to 6%. And we talked about minority contracts. That can be because of the Supreme Court decision last week that could be threatened. But let's go to the Supreme Court decision of last week, especially the ban on race-based affirmative action. Later in the hour, we'll talk about talk to the lead attorney suing Harvard University over its legacy-based admission practices, which were left untouched by the court's decision. Some congressional Democrats have already introduced legislation targeting legislation admissions. Do you support such a move?
Well, I support taking a strong look at it. When we talked about what happened with the Supreme Court decision, they focused on not being able to use race as one of many factors when considering admissions to a university. And I think it's interesting because there's a contradiction there. Exempt from this rule were the military academies. And the military academies are some of our most elite colleges, and they train leaders. And even Justice Roberts acknowledged that allowing affirmative action at the military academies makes for a stronger military. So there's a contradiction there. It does make for a stronger campus community, stronger classrooms, different life experiences. And so the Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, the Congressional Asia Pacific American Caucus that we call the Tri-Caucus when we're together, we came out against this ruling. And I think one thing's important to note here. If boards of regents at universities, if college presidents, if admissions groups, if they want to have a diverse student body, and diverse in every possible sense of the word, but making sure that they are allowing underrepresented groups to participate, they can do that. They have some tools they can use. But saying that affirmative action based on race and admissions is just something that denies the fact that you can't have an unfair advantage if you come from a group of people that has been historically disadvantaged for such a long time.
Next week, the House is set to take up a floor debate on the reauthorization of the annual defense policy bill. And at issue for many House Republicans are abortion protections for U.S. military personnel after Roe's reversal, and efforts by the Pentagon to promote diversity and inclusion within the ranks is also an issue. As such, House Republicans have filed amendments to try to strip those provisions out, along with efforts to root out extremism in the ranks and deal with climate change. My question is, at a time when recruitment is struggling, how does opposing diversity, equity, and inclusion while fostering extremists in our ranks help to convince new recruits our military leaders say they need?
Well, Reverend, it's ridiculous. If you look at the enlisted ranks in the U.S. military, 40% are people of color. 20% are African American. So you see the Republicans trying to basically eliminate DEI across the board, including in the military. When we had our 14-hour markup for the defense bill, we spent about 3 or 4 hours, Reverend, I'm not exaggerating, arguing over DEI efforts. And here's what we know. We know that among enlisted ranks, when surveyed, over 70% say they support DEI efforts. We have an all-volunteer military. Anyone who wants to serve, who's qualified to serve, should be able to do so. And when they are serving, they should be treated fairly and with respect. That means promotions, that means military justice, it means opportunities, it means all the things that should come with serving your country. What we should be focusing on are the things that I'm trying to introduce. Increasing the housing allowance, trying to build more housing, making sure that families get access to housing that is livable, making sure that the salaries are on par. Those are the things that families talk about. Childcare, spouses being able to be employed. Those are the things we should be focusing on instead of having arguments about things that really undermine readiness and undermine the effectiveness of the U.S. military.
Thank you for being with us, Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland of the state of Washington. Joining me now is Kansas City